Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Benchwarmer Sports Podcast. Raffi here, joined by Davian. Davian, we're back. NFL action is continuing. We're going to be talking about that for the most part today. And Davian, there's a lot to discuss. And obviously, don't worry, I will throw it to you as is customary for you to tell me how you're doing and for our weekly check-in. But Davian, I have no idea what's going on with the AFC. To your benefit as a Patriots fan, but I'm looking at the current teams in the playoffs. And I don't know about you, but I just get like early 2010 vibes right now. I just Peyton Manning on the Colts, Ben Roethlisberger, Phil Rivers, Tom Brady. David, don't get too choked up over that. Tom Brady, yes, Patriots legend Tom Brady. The Buffalo Bills, which is that's kind of random, okay. But the Jaguars and Broncos randomly having good years. Kyle Orton back in the day for the Jay Cutler before he got traded to the Bears. I don't know what's going on in the AFC, so we have plenty to talk about with this NFL season so far, 6 weeks in. I don't really know who's going to win the Super Bowl this year at this point. But before we get into that, David, how are you? How are things? Yeah, I'm sure you're doing great overall because the Patriots, Drake May looks like he could be a guy.
Look, I'm doing phenomenal. I think this team is finally, the energy on this team, the vibes are all-time high. I really think, that Stephon Diggs revenge game against the Bills really brought a whole lot of energy. This Saints team, yes, I know the Saints record kind of speaks for itself, but also at the same time, this Saints team isn't that bad defensively. They are pretty competitive, and Rattler hasn't been playing the worst football out there either. So, a good win last week. Have two teams coming up in the Titans and in the Browns, which are games that I think hopefully those are easy wins. Of course, then we got the Falcons and Buccaneers. Those are going to be two really tough teams, especially, Raffi, right before I pass it back to you. These Falcons have been doing amazing, and Bijan Robinson is an absolute dog, for lack of better words. But, Raffi, I've been doing great. I just have been turning a blind eye to Rangers hockey, excited for Knicks basketball. We're not going to talk about the Yankees. And so, passing it back to you, Raffi, how have you been?
The Yankees lose. It's always great. Always great to say it. My favorite. And then I love DM blasting that to all of my Yankees.
Yeah, Raffi. I got your text, man. So, I did.
Yes. You received several just like other people, but you should be grateful because this is how close we are as co-hosts where I feel comfortable blasting you with a ton of Yankees memes because it's hilarious to me. But overall, I'm doing well. Blackhawks won 8-3 yesterday versus St. Louis Blues as we're recording this podcast Thursday, October 16th. If the games are going to start at 9 p.m. for the Blackhawks and they're going to show up like that, sign me up. I'll stay up till midnight every night to watch the Blackhawks. 8-3 versus St. Louis, absolute masterclass. We're so back. Dynasty's returning. Davian's feeling like the Patriots dynasty's coming back. I'm feeling like the Blackhawks dynasty's coming back. We're running things back to the mid-2010s, baby. Let's get it. But back to NFL content, because that's what we're going to be talking about today. It's going to be the primary thing. You're right about the Patriots, and we'll dive into the Patriots and other teams in general who are currently in the playoff picture and just outside of it, looking into the mix. But the Patriots, they had a decently easy schedule to start the season. We didn't expect the Dolphins to be as bad as they were this year. They had the big win versus the Bills, but they lose to the Raiders. They lose to the Steelers. Ideally, you beat the Raiders, but it's week one.
We should be 3-1. You beat the Dolphins. We should be 3-1. We were.
You beat the Panthers.
Whatever our record is, but we should have.
You beat the Saints, and if you had told me we'd get to week 6 and the Patriots would be 4-2, I'd say, you know what?
We should be 5-1.
If you squint hard enough, if Drake May's that guy, they beat the Raiders, they beat the Dolphins, they beat the Panthers, they beat the Saints, and turns out things flipped a little bit because the NFL is one of those leagues where we see random teams just wind up beating other teams that they likely wouldn't typically win. That's because overall it's really hard to go undefeated. It's also really hard to lose every single game too, regardless if you're bad. Players don't just throw games; they try to win regardless. So you'll get a team that might be 2 wins into week 7, and they're gonna have a chip on their shoulder and somehow beat you because you take your foot off the gas. But you're right, David. I look at the next 2 weeks. Titans, Browns, there's no reason why the Patriots can't be 6-2.
Yeah.
Going into 2 really tough games versus the Falcons and the Bucks. But if you have 6 wins 8 weeks into the season, and you really, let's say 9 wins is typically where we see that 6-7 seed, then I think the Patriots are
Continue.
I think the Patriots are in a really good spot right now if they take care of business the next 2 weeks to make the playoffs. And you look at their schedule too. Can they get another few wins out of the Jets, Bengals, Giants? I assume the Ravens will be back by the time they play them. And then you play the Jets again and the Dolphins. I think the Patriots look really good. But Davian, I don't want to talk too much about the Patriots. I'm sure you want to talk a lot about them.
Yeah.
But let's look at some other teams too. David, I want to talk about the AFC South real quick. We see the Colts and the Jaguars. What are your thoughts on those two teams? Do you think the Texans wind up catching them? Do you think they keep their momentum? The Jaguars are always an enigma in my mind. The Colts are doing really, really well. Do you think the Colts and Jaguars can sustain this success? And do you think the Texans are going to be able to overcome their O-line woes and make it back to the playoffs as they did last year?
Yeah, I guess starting off the Texans, like I really don't think that they could come up. I think they will be able to, make a comeback of some sort, but I think given how competitive this division has become, it's gonna be very tough for them to make the playoffs because they'll need to be a wild card team. I think I don't see them winning the division. I think the Colts are gonna win this division, based off what we've seen so far. But look, the Texans have the Niners, the Broncos, then the Jaguars. Right? The Niners are a pretty good team. I mean, even with Mac Jones under the helm, or if it's Brock Purdy, it doesn't really matter. It seems like they always figure out a way to win. This Broncos team, it's slightly disappointing than what they should be, but also a very good team. And then you got the Jaguars. And so, they don't have an easy schedule coming up, this Texans team. And so it's going to be very tough for them to catch up. In terms of the Colts, in terms of the Jaguars, I don't think that they'll be able to catch up to the Colts. I think this Colts team has developed a system that works. Very similar to the Vikings system that they've done in the past. Very similar to the Seahawks with their first season with Geno Smith. Sometimes you don't need a star quarterback, and the NFL is shifting in a way that, Raffi, a few years ago, you and I and Theodore, we used to talk about how, you shouldn't be overpaying these quarterbacks, and that you could have a system quarterback and create a system that works. And we haven't really been able to see that for a while, but now more and more teams are adopting that type of a method. They're looking for a quarterback that, sure, might not make the plays like Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, but they're winning you games, right? Look at the Vikings with what they have with J.J. McCarthy. He's not someone who's a star, but, we'll see how he comes back. We'll see how he plays. Look at the Niners. Look at the Colts. This is just a growing trend, and it seems to kind of work. But, Raffi, I'm curious about a division that's pretty close to heart for you, the NFC South. Right now, of course, you do have the Falcons, playing pretty well, but you have the Buccaneers, who have been absolutely astounding. Do you think the Falcons have any possibility of catching up to these Buccaneers, or do you think the Buccaneers just walk away with this division?
I think the Buccaneers just run away with this division. And the big thing for me is we're talking about quarterbacks, and I think at the end of the day, we just need to also acknowledge the fact that some quarterbacks are just better fits with certain teams.
Yes. 100%.
They might not be perfect matches with the team that they get drafted to or they start with. Baker Mayfield was a solid quarterback with the Browns. On the Buccaneers, he's just taken this team to a whole different level since he's been there. Daniel Jones, a guy who had one really good year with the Giants, but for the most part didn't really play too well with them. That's why they wound up parting ways. Looks a lot better on the Colts in their system. You see Sam Darnold, how he's really rejuvenated his career after going to the Vikings last year. And now with Seattle, he is no guy who's going to throw for 30 touchdowns and go crazy, but he's good enough to where the Seahawks have 4 wins. They've surrounded him with plenty of good weapons. Jackson Smith and Jigba is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL this year. You still have Cooper Kupp. Overall, it's a solid team in Seattle that's helping Sam Darnold. So I agree. I think for a lot of these teams, before I get into the NFC South, I think more teams now are, I guess, a little more willing to take that reclamation project chance, especially because, one, it's more cost effective. You're only paying probably $20-30 million a year, which is still a lot, but $20-30 million a year versus you see some of the top end guys. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be making close to $70-80 million next year. So if you're paying only $30 million to a quarterback who might not be at that tier, you wind up, it's simple math. You have an extra $40 million to get an elite pass rusher, to build some other pieces around your quarterback to put them in a good scenario where they're able to succeed. Now, moving over to the NFC South, getting back to it, I think the Buccaneers will handily win this division, but the Atlanta Falcons continue to be one of those teams where they just need to be more consistent.
Yeah.
They will look great. They looked really good versus Bills, especially in the first half. The second half was a little shaky, but they got the job done.
Yeah, that's all that matters.
This team also got blown out by the Panthers like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So this team is very up and down, very hot and cold. But the thing I can say, though, with confidence is they have a pass rush. Yeah. And I haven't been able to say they have a pass rush in pretty much a decade at this point. The Falcons' defense is back. They're really good. They're getting after the quarterback. They gave Josh Allen fits this past weekend, Monday Night Football. And before the season started, I said that the pass rush and the defense was going to make or break the Falcons season. I still believe that is the case. But when I look at this team, I feel a lot better about saying I can see this team making the playoffs this year than I did earlier on before the season started when we were doing our initial predictions, where I was looking at this team saying, I don't know if they're going to wind up making it. The Panthers, too, for all the talk about Bryce Young, etc., the team, they're 3-3 too. The defense has looked solid overall.
The defense looks
I know
good.
Bryce Young
when you're
been
able to run the ball and you keep the ball away from Bryce Young throwing it, of course it could be good, you know?
Yeah, and the defense is taking a step. Obviously, they need some more help still on that O-line.
Yeah.
Tedero McMillan has looked the part so far as a top 10 pick of the NFL draft.
Raffi, but Bryce Young does not look good. I'm sorry, I've watched him play. Like, I watched that Cardinals game, where I don't think did they win that game against the Cardinals? I forget. No, they did. Yeah, I remember watching that game against the Cardinals, which they lost, and he just looked very inaccurate. I didn't like his poise. I mean, I think he's gotten better over the weeks, but also another team that's just inconsistent. Like, how are you blowing out the Falcons 30-0, but then you're losing to the Patriots 42-13? Granted, the Patriots are great, but look, I think they've started to be more consistent, especially with the emergence of Dowdle. How do you pronounce his last name?
Rico Dowdle.
Yeah. With the emergence of him, I think they've already they've started to click and create a system. But talking about systems and teams that have started to click, the New York Giants, Raffi, have for once actually looked promising, and now yes, they are 2-4, bottom of the division, but is there a way that this Giants team, if they put up a streak, can they, do you think, become a wild card team? Or is it just going to be really tough in this NFC conference where a lot of teams are pretty competitive? I mean, look at the NFC West. We have 3 teams that are 4-2, right? So the wild cards are going to be very, very hard to break into, even with the expanded format. But, Raffi, I'm curious. Is there hope for Giants fans, or is this just a growing year where they get to see Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo just, get CTE, but ball off too?
I feel a lot better about this team potentially making a little bit of noise or make things interesting down the stretch if they had Malik Neighbors. Obviously, losing him for the entire season
is tough. Yeah,
a very, very big hit and has hampered them. But Jackson Dart still looks solid. Last week, no Malik Neighbors. Really did well against the Eagles, who we can talk about shortly as another team that's been very consistent to start the year. And yeah, Jackson Dart's looked the part. I look at their schedule. You have the Broncos, who really good defensively. That's a poor batch for a rookie quarterback. That's going to be really interesting because if Jackson Dart looks composed and can be a solid guy and handle the Broncos' pressure and beat the Broncos, I think then you can start to have that conversation of, okay, the Giants are going to stick around a lot later into the season. But you look at the rest of their schedule, and it just seems like the odds are stacked against them. I think this is a big building year for them. Yeah. You have Abdul Carter, Brian Burns. You have a really solid pass rush for the Giants. You really need to improve that secondary. You could use another wide receiver too, maybe a little bit, beef up your offensive line a little bit. But I think the Giants are trending in the right direction, which is the first time that I feel like I can confidently say that in what feels like a couple years. I know Daniel Jones had that 1 year where they looked really promising, made the playoffs, beat the Vikings, but that was, I think a lot of people thought that would be like the uphill for them, but that didn't really happen. But I don't think they made the playoffs this year, but I wouldn't be surprised if they lingered around longer than people expected. Or when we look at the end of the season, and we look back on the Giants season, I wouldn't be shocked if we look back and say, you know what, they had a couple games there that they were pretty close, and if those games had just flipped the other way for them or went in their favor, then
we could be talking about
we could have seen them potentially in the playoffs.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. Raffi, I did talk about the NFC West. You do have the 49ers, the Seahawks, the Rams. All three teams have been playing very well. Of course, both the Rams and Niners dealing with the injury bug, especially the Niners. I mean, every week it's somebody going down. It was Brock Purdy, it was Juwan Jennings, it was Fred Warner. I mean, the only thing that I think the NFL gods are just cursing the Niners with, all right, you can keep C-Mac healthy, but everybody else is going to get injured. And the Rams, losing Puka Nacua the other day definitely hurts their chances. But I'm curious, Raffi, who do you think comes out on top in this NFC West division?
I really still like the Rams.
I do too.
Puka only being out a couple weeks is something that's obviously going to hurt for them overall, but this team still should be a team that plays pretty solid down the stretch. Yeah. They have one of the best defenses in the NFL still. Their offense is still producing. Matthew Stafford has shown some signs of slowing down, but overall still looks like, no doubt, top 15 quarterback in the NFL. And Sean McVay is still one of the best and greatest coaching minds currently in the NFL. So I do think the Rams get it done just on the account of the fact that I think the Seahawks are always a team that I feel start the season really well but tend to run out of gas. And I think with a Sam Darnold team, we're going to see something similar. I think this Seahawks team is very similar to the Vikings last year.
Yeah.
And I think we'll see a similar story where the Seahawks, as we're seeing right now, get off to a solid start. But I do think that they might trail off a little bit as the season goes on. And then the Niners, I can't rely on them anymore. Davian, I'm going to pose this question to you.
Yeah, let's hear it.
To answer your question, I think the Rams do win the division. Do you think the Niners window has closed now?
I think I have to look at their schedule a bit more right now, and I'll pull it up right now. But it's tough. It's tough because, they haven't been playing bad football, even without Mac Jones, and Christian McCaffrey has been great. But they have had some key wins. Like that win against the Rams in overtime was huge for them in terms of any potential tiebreaker. Yes, losing to the Buccaneers. I mean, the Buccaneers are just a great team. But if you look at their schedule, right, yes, they have the Falcons coming up, tough team. But then you have the Texans and the Giants. And both teams, yes, on the comeback might be good, but they're not super teams, right? Then you got the Rams again. It's a team that they beat before. They're playing at home now. Who knows? I mean, then again, SoFi Stadium is basically home for the Niners either way. And then you have the Cardinals, Panthers, Browns, Titans in a 4-game stretch. So I wouldn't say their window's completely closed, but if these injuries continue, Raffi, I just don't see how this team is going to be able to keep playing together and playing well. Because it's one thing you lose a key player, but what people don't understand is that the NFL is it's a team sport. You lose Fred Warner, right? Any plays that you had drawn up where, you have Fred Warner rushing in, you have Fred Warner in coverage, right? You have to adjust that now to what you have now. And having that constant weekly adjustment is just going to be very draining for the team. So we talk about a team running out of gas. So you said the Seahawks. I see that in the Niners potentially. And especially because, without Brock Purdy and with Mac Jones, yes, Mac Jones has been playing great, but they've been using, Christian McCaffrey more. And who knows if Christian McCaffrey can keep holding up and keep playing well. So to answer your question, it hasn't closed yet, but it's going to, they need to start pulling off wins now, especially against tough teams. If they can't be competitive against the Falcons this week, then I think we can have a conversation next week, Raffi, where we could say, yeah, their window's starting to close.
See, in my mind, though, I'd consider their window closing on the account of, yes, they could still make the playoffs this year, but I don't feel like the Niners are at the same tier that they were the past couple of years, where I looked at their team and said, this team is a bona fide Super Bowl contender. I look at this Niners team.
I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender anymore.
Can look at their schedule
I agree with you on that,
and say, okay, this team can certainly get 10 or 11 wins because look at their schedule.
Yeah.
You just need Brock Purdy to stay healthy, really, and then you should be fine. But when I look at this team, and again, we can get into it shortly, the NFC is very wide open. But if I had to take a team, I'm not taking the Niners. The Niners are probably, I would take Tampa for sure. I would take the Rams over the Niners right now with a healthy Puka Nacua, assuming that he's only about a few weeks, which that's the plan. And then I feel the Lions, they're dealing with some health problems. A fully healthy Lions, they're not missing anyone too long term. So the Lions, for the most part, you're going to expect them to get healthy, hopefully. So I take the Lions over them. Packers, I could see them beating the Niners on a good day. The Packers haven't been as great as I expected them to be this year, but the defense has been solid enough. Jordan Love has shown his flashes of being a really solid quarterback. And NFC East, I feel better about the Eagles, who have been more up and down, a little more bipolar than the Niners, but I feel better about the Eagles being better than the Niners too this year. I'd pick them over the Niners too. So I think the Niners are certainly a playoff team, but I think the Niners are going to be one of those teams this year where
they're not a Super Bowl contender.
We see them with 10 or 11 wins and say, oh, this team's record's really good. And then they play the first round of the playoffs in the wild card weekend. And
they got smoked.
Wind up having to go on the road against someone. They go on the road against one of the division winners, and they just can't hang with them.
Yeah.
That's what I think is the Niners.
No, I see that point.
You look at this team, they're going to keep getting older. Brock Purdy, I believe Brock Purdy has gotten paid now, so that's obviously going to start to eat into the Niners salary situation. And I just think that we're going to start to see the Niners slowly start to go down.
They are still drafting young though. Like they do still have young players, so I wouldn't say that their ability to make another Super Bowl is completely closed yet. But I think for this season it is. I think it's just the amount of injuries.
They're going to be a mediocre team.
You just can't play like
they can be. They have a good enough quarterback and a good enough running back and a decent enough defense where they will consistently be in that 8 to 10 win range. Yeah. But I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender
Raffi,
over the past couple of years.
If the Super Bowl is to be today, who do you think is playing?
Oh boy, that's a fun question. We haven't even talked about the AFC North yet.
Yeah, I know. But the AFC North hasn't been playing well. Like hasn't been looking good at all. Let's be honest.
We'll talk about. I want a very short answer from you about the Ravens in a minute. But to answer your question, I'm gonna go. This has to be the Bills' year. If the Bills do not make the Super Bowl this year, it's a massive disappointment just because how wide open the AFC is. And I'm going to bet on the talent. I'm going to bet on them finally breaking through. And the NFC, I just think Tampa's the best team right now. And they're just going to keep getting more and more healthy throughout the rest of the season. They still haven't picked up Godwin yet, who's going to be out for another couple of weeks. I think we see Tampa make it back to the Super Bowl for the first time since Tom Brady took them there. And I have them playing against the Bills. How about you?
Yeah, I'm going to break the Chargers curse. I really think that this Chargers team looks very, very good. And I think that they're going to continue to improve. And then, of course, the Buccaneers. I mean, they're just an absolutely amazing team. To come on the Ravens, Raffi, I mean, I don't know. It's
do you think they make the playoffs?
Man, yeah. Yes, they do. Because this division sucks, Raffi. I mean, the Steelers and Bengals are playing right now because we're recording this on Thursday night, and that game is close, right? I mean, they have the Steelers on their schedule. They have the Bengals on their schedule twice. They have the Browns and the Jets. These are very easily winnable games, and so Lamar Jackson comes back, I could see them pulling it through. But until that, it depends at what capacity he comes back. If he's not playing at full capacity, no, absolutely not. But what's your take?
You really can't afford to slip up, though, on any of these bad teams. The Bears are likely, I wouldn't be shocked to beat the Ravens. I think they will. But then you can't, Dolphins, Jets, Browns, Bengals twice, Steelers twice. You can't be slipping up on those teams.
No.
They dug themselves a hole with, especially Lamar Jackson. But what did I say? They're going to regret losing that game to the Bills by a point and blowing that game.
Yeah.
They're going to regret blowing that game versus the Lions, and now we're seeing it.
Yeah.
You can't miss out.
The Steelers don't have an easy schedule, though, Raffi. That's the thing. The Steelers have the Packers, the Colts, the Steelers coming up. So the
they
Chargers.
Can't slip up though.
Yeah, no, they can't. They can't. They have zero room for error. They need to win out. Raffi, if they lose this week, right, they're 1-6. At that point, they need to win out basically to be able to make it. Like to win the division, maybe you don't need to win out, but every game is almost a Super Bowl for them then.
The road to 9-8 starts now for the AFC North. Can the Ravens overcome the 9-8 Steelers? They're going to be 9-8. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
We'll see, but that'll do it for this edition of the Benchwarmer Sports Podcast. Let us know in the comments who you guys think will looks the best and will likely wind up making the Super Bowl. Obviously, we're 6 weeks in. There's so much to still go down, but I don't know what's going on in the NFL this year. That's
It's
just
fun,
what's making
Rafi.
it really
It's so
intriguing
much
fun
fun.
this year. So we'll see what ends up happening. But for Davian, I'm Rafi. We hope you enjoyed. Have a good one. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and follow us on TikTok, Benchwarmer_sports. And yeah, have a good one. See ya.
Peace.